isn't Director Skinner's office. I'm sorry, he's about to go into a meeting. Yes, it may last several hours. You're welcome.
Please just keep reminding him you were drunk.
Would you stop that?
It couldn't hurt.
Just stop it. Scully, Mulder?
I was drugged.
Yeehaw! Welcome to an X-Files podcast. I knew I'd pop you. Welcome to episode 122 of Most Wanted. I don't really have anything else past the yeehaw. That was my big gambit at the beginning. So, how are you doing today, Daniel Checkley, my co-host?
I am absolutely fine. Yeah. I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too bad. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. There's not a lot we can really say. still locked down. Still muddling through, I suppose.
What have you been doing to pass the time away?
Pretty much what I've been doing before, just in greater numbers. So watching TV, and stuff like that. I've got really into audiobooks, as we were talking off air about that. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. I've just found a lot more time in like. Your free time, I guess. No, there's no commuting, no family commitments. Not that that's a bad thing, but you know what I mean. Like you've found new replacements for it, I suppose.
How do you find with audiobooks? Audiobooks and podcasts. Because for me personally, I'm talking more about podcasts because I don't really listen to audiobooks. But with podcasts, I find that the lack of commute has actually cut down my listening to podcasts because I feel like I could be doing something else. Like a podcast's great for me there's certain ones I still listen to, but I used to do it when I was commuting to and from places. And then now I never really think to do it when I'm just sort of don't know what to do with myself. So are you still finding time to do it?
Yeah, I've called a lot, to be honest, because I've kind of, basically the stuff where I was like, I've got overly ambitious before and just like added loads, and then I just got around to it and I was like, I don't care. I just like got rid of a load. So I'm down to like sort of the core ones that I listen to. But I find that I have time now where I either listen to them while I'm working doing something that doesn't really require like too much thought, I suppose, or something like chores like washing up, or when I'm cleaning around the house and stuff like that. It's mainly stuff like that is when I'm doing sort of kind of brainless tasks, if you know what I mean. It's a good sort of companion for that. And I sometimes listen to it instead of watching something, like when I'm in bed. So it's not too bad. I've sort of managed to keep up with most things. But again, like I said, I've cut down a lot on stuff.
Yeah. I can understand. To be fair, I know a lot of people that have just don't, not that they don't have time at all, but it's just almost like habit. It's like the habit of a lot of people is to, when they're on the way to somewhere, that's when they'll listen to the podcast. And when that gets taken away, it's weird to get that into your habit, into another part of your routine in the day, isn't it?
Yeah. I do.
So, it is pretty strange.
It is. Yeah, it is a bit of a culture shock, but yeah, it's just one of those. I guess it's sort of made you think, do you actually listen, or do you actually want to, I suppose, to some of them, or yeah, as you mentioned, would you rather do something else, I suppose, with your time? So, it sort of, it reprioritizes things, I suppose, when you don't have these things to do. But anyway, I suppose we've started with a question. We might as well carry on with some more questions.
Questions with the boys. Questions with the boys. After the chasing sunset, one of life's simple joys. Questions with the boys.
So I've got two questions for you today. One is probably a bit more in depth, might require a bit of thinking, or at least going back in time. What is the best party you've ever been to?
The best party I've ever been to? Okay, so there's a cheat answer, which is probably my wedding day.
Yeah.
But in genuine, like, I know that is a cheat answer, but really, it was a cracking party, though, wasn't it? Like, it was. I think everyone that all of us got together. It's just nice to get everyone that you love in one place. Yeah. So like, you can't really go wrong. But if I'm taking that off the table because it is a bit too easy, I remember. God, I think I was 24. I think it was my 24th birthday. And Jem planned a surprise party for me, and I had absolutely no idea. It's the only surprise party I've ever had. And I walked through the door, and I think you was there, wasn't you? I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And I opened the door. I had no idea, and everyone was there. And I loved that. I know some people don't like surprise parties, do they? But I absolutely loved it. And it was weird. The feeling of a long day at work and just sort of wanting to just do nothing but get home and just put your feet up, and then switching in a second to party mode as soon as you realise what's going on. I just thought I had a ball. Yeah. What about you?
Bringing up when you brought up your wedding, that would probably be, that was quite a good. Yeah, it's weird. I didn't consider it a party until you mentioned it. I was like, it basically is a party, I guess.
Especially afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, the thing about weddings is, as mad as it sounds, when you boil it down, half the money for a wedding goes to throwing like a really good party for everybody. Do you know what I mean? So
I know it is strange, but yeah, that one didn't pop into my head initially, but yeah, I mentioned it probably would be up there. The ones that stick out to me, and this, I don't even think it was that great of a party. It's just, do you know what, when you just have a vivid memory of parties? Yeah. So we went to somebody's, one of Tasha's like uni friends. We went to a party that she had. I need to be quite sensible with how I word this. It didn't go great, but I just have memories of actually being there and just being around other people. It was weird. It just sort of imploded, but in the best possible way, if you know what I mean. It's again, I can't go into too many details because I don't want to be incriminating, but
I've got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, but I just remember like snapshots of like I was in this one room like playing the PlayStation with someone, and then somebody said, "Oh, are we doing it? Okay, I guess fine." And then we just got dragged into different rooms and stuff. It was just one of those like weird unit. It wasn't like a big party, I suppose, but it was just weirdly chaotic, and that one always sticks out in my head as like I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's one of the most memorable because of just how much happened, I guess.
Yeah. Especially when you're not really directly involved in anything. Yeah. I can always get behind that. Just watching things around you implode. Yeah.
There's others as well. There's definitely a lot of parties I used to go to when I was a lot younger, which tend to not be invited to that often anymore. But yeah, I can't think of any other ones really. There's that one, the wedding, and I suppose, is a stag do a party? I don't know.
Oh, that was a good weekend.
Yeah,
a weekend long party. Yeah,
that was yeah. Because you're not in somebody's house, it doesn't feel like a party. You know what I mean?
yeah. I know what you mean.
But yeah, that was pretty up there. But yeah, I'd say that one at uni, that was quite interesting. There was a lot of those, like when me and Tash sort of first moved in, there was a lot of like uni parties and stuff like that you'd go to.
That's what you go to uni for.
Yeah, or leech off in my case. Okay, second question, probably a bit simpler. So during the multiple lockdowns that we've had, at what point did you give up on wearing proper trousers? Or have you? Or are you still maintaining that I need to keep getting dressed mentality?
So this is controversial from what I've had this conversation with a few people, and apparently it's a controversial view that I have. I don't feel uncomfortable in jeans. So a lot of people like, oh, how can you just relax in jeans after work? Well, it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I actually feel like as long as I'm dressed, I feel a lot more comfortable just lounging around if I'm dressed up properly. However, over the second lockdown, I bought my first pair of sweatpants.
Yeah.
And they are comfy. I have to admit, they are comfy. So, I don't know. Oh, actually, I tell a lie. It's not like sweatpants. They're like, I went, do you remember last year when we went, it was me and your brother, Dean. We went mining.
Yeah.
So we went down their mines and we did all the zip lines and climbing and stuff like that. I bought a pair of like these sort of cargo trouser things, and they're comfy as well, but I don't really wear them every now. But yeah, basically, second lockdown, I do have days where I sort of just dress down, but I always get dressed.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people that can lounge around in like pajamas or anything like that for the day. Like the first thing I do when I get up is get dressed. I just feel comfortable like that. I don't feel like the day started.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like when you're ill,
yeah,
like you'll just have a day where you don't get dressed. I feel awful for it. Like I feel like my whole day has just been lost.
I feel worse for if I've not like got properly like showered and ready and stuff like that. Even if I'm just gonna put comfy trousers back on or something like that. But I feel like I don't know when it was exactly for me, but No, I was the same as you. Like Tasha would always say to me, "How can you relax in your jeans?" Like just sat there, and I was like, "Don't bother me." I didn't even notice half the time. Yeah. But then, I feel like not long after the first lockdown, when I was like realizing, I'm working from home for the long haul now. I started like I put on just like jogging bottoms for one of the days at work because I was like, I don't have any jeans ready. I'll just put these on, and then that was it. I was like, oh, this is comfy. I think the last time I wore jeans was when we were all allowed out to go and rejig the economy, basically. I sort of, obviously I'm not going to walk around town in my my scrubs, I guess. But I've not worn jeans since then.
It's fashionable now. Yeah. Like, wear the unfashionable ones for not wearing stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm fuddy-duddy about that, though. I can't go into town not wearing, like, jeans or... I mean, I won't wear a suit normally, but you know what I mean? Like, some kind of, like, actual trouser.
The funny thing is, I've found myself creating new routines and new reasons, which is actually, I think it's helped me mentally. I really do. And so... obviously the football's still going on. Yeah. And at the moment it's such a tight schedule that it's usually 2 games a week. And I found it gives me something to look forward to. So like it's given some, because obviously I'm still not working and I'm still on furlough at the moment. It's given me something to look forward to and also get myself ready for. So like on a football day, I'll dress up nice. Yeah. I'll do my hair. I'll you know what I mean? Like it's stuff like that. And it sounds silly because, like, you're just going to sit in your home with it as everything else and still watch the match. You know what I mean? You don't have to go through that effort. But doing that, I find it just gives me, like, almost like a purpose in a weird way. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely think it's helped me, my mental health, to sort of have something that I can sort of, it's like for tonight, for example, there's a Liverpool match on tonight. Yeah. And in my head, I woke up, I was like, right, it's the match tonight, so let's go get showered, let's go do my hair. You know what I mean? Like let's put on some nice clothes. I don't know why it's really strange how your mind craves routine.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it is one of those where you do sort of have some kind of social etiquette still. Like back when we were allowed to meet people and stuff like that. Obviously, you'd sort of make an effort then. But it's I think finding your kind of as we've mentioned a few times, like trying to give yourself some kind of like job, even if you're not working, give yourself some kind of job, kind of task to do, then you're all good. But anyway, that feels like we've got enough about our lives, told by us. But did we flavour it with our own experiences and opinions? Maybe. Just like our favourite agents. Let's get on with the show. So today we're looking at episode 12 of series 5, entitled Bad Blood. It was directed by Cliff Bole, or Bowl. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, so I'll do both.
I would say Belay. It's got an accent over the E.
Did it have an accent?
Yeah, so I would assume it's like hyperbole. So I'm going to say Cliff Belay.
Cliff Belay, yeah.
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll go with that. Cliff
But yeah,
Belay.
probably Belay, if we're being serious.
It was written by Vince Gilligan, and the original air date was February the 22nd, 1998. So we start and we see a teenage boy running through the woods at night, being chased by a man in a black overcoat. Now, they try and keep it mysterious. But straight away, as soon as you see that flowing jacket, like, well, that's definitely Mulder, isn't it?
Oh, I see. I didn't pick it up until he turned around. I'll be
really?
Honest. Yeah. I think it's because he's, like, chasing after a kid. You know what I mean? Like, it's very sinister.
Yeah.
Because before we watched this episode, I went on to it was either Wikipedia or the X-Files wiki or some sort of online sort of place where I was looking for like all the director and stuff like that for my notes. And so I went on, and the synopsis for the episode reads as follows. And bear in mind, I've not seen the episode yet. After Mulder kills a teenage boy who he believed was a vampire, he and Scully recount the events that led to the killing. And I was like, what on earth are we getting ourselves in for this week?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds surprisingly dark, but it quickly lets you know it's not.
Yeah.
I saw the jacket and I was like, oh, that's Mulder, and I'm like, straight away, like, what's going on here? But yeah, anyway, he, this kid trips over and the pursuer, jumps on top of him, pulls out a wooden stake and promptly stabs the boy in the chest. We then see Scully run into the scene, and this is the point now where he turns around and we see that it's Mulder who stabbed this kid. He opens the kid's mouth to show that he's got some fangs, but Scully taps the fangs and they fall out. They're fake. And then immediately to kind of like let you know what we're in for, we see Mulder just go, oh, shh, and then gets cut off by the... I feel like it went from dark to instantly, oh, this is going to be like a Darren Morgan kind of episode.
Yeah, it's definitely got that sort of comedy edge to it. And genuinely, like, really exciting, and you want to know what happens next because we've just seen Mulder kill an innocent kid from the looks of it.
Yeah. We then, after the intro, we're in the X-Files office, and Mulder and Scully are having this awkward scene where they're not really talking to each other, or Mulder's mad at Scully, and then he decides to take out his frustrations on a bin. Again, this is setting the stall. The way he kicks in the bin is so, like, over the top and comedic that you're like, oh, okay, this is not going to be a dark story of how Mulder's potentially wronged an innocent.
No.
Apparently Skinner is expecting a report on this, and Mulder and Scully need to get their stories straight, which Mulder's a bit worried about. The boy's family apparently want to sue the FBI for $446 million, which pretty steep.
I reckon the fact that the method of killing helps contribute to that amount.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah, if an FBI agent stabbed someone straight through the chest, it's like, yeah,
with a wooden stake.
Yeah. But yeah, Scully notes that they could both be on the line for this, to which even Mulder starts talking about Scully's potential prison inmate, I guess.
Yeah.
Scully thinks that Mulder had overreacted. The stabbing was an overreaction, and Mulder wants to hear what her side of the story is, or what her version of the events are. And
they do also put forward the idea that, yes, this kid was a murderer, or he was involved in this, and so almost freeing up the idea in the viewer's mind that you're not looking at Mulder as like this cold killer. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's put forward that, yes, Mulder was killed, but in this sort of comedic, sort of quirky episode, don't focus too much on that because the guy you killed was a bad guy. it's just not he was killed not for the reason that Mulder expected, or at least that's what was led to believe.
Was that in the middle, or was it right at the beginning? Because she mentions that he's not a supernatural killer in the middle, but I don't know if they mention it.
She does say that like she will let she'll let Skinner know that he was a killer.
Yeah. But then we get Scully's version of this story, and it's quite a simple enough story to follow, and I think that's the key to this, so you can butcher it in their own ways, I guess.
I love stories like this.
Yeah.
Just because... So I immediately sort of get the idea that it's being told from two people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I find the most interesting thing about stories like this, because I think they've done one before, and I can't for the life of me remember which episode it was.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There was something where somebody was doing it. It wasn't as overt as this. It was kind of like, I think it was like a scene, wasn't it, or something like that.
I can't remember. Yeah. I'll have a look back in my notes in a little bit. But yeah, the thing I love most about this type of storytelling is with the unreliable narrator. I love the insight you get into the individual's mind and what they think of the other person as well.
Yeah.
Because the way the other person's acting gives you so much insight into what the person who's thinking about it and who's recounting it thinks of that person. It's phenomenal.
That's the thing. It's that kind of like nugget of truth exaggerated to the nth degree, which... or even not even a nugget of truth in Mulder's version of the events, but we'll get to that. We start off with Scully's version, and they're in the X-Files office, and Mulder is on cloud nine. There's no other way to put this. He's enthusiastically telling Scully about the death of a number of cows, and as he let slip at the end, which Scully says is probably the important information, a person. And we find out that they've all had their blood drained, and they've got like 2 puncture marks on them. The slideshow that he gives, there's a lot of things in this. The yeehaw to start with, how he's like a million miles a minute, you know what I mean? Like he's so exuberant telling it. And the slideshow, he's like...
When I arrived at work, you were characteristically exuberant.
Hope you brought your cowboy boots.
You want us to go to Dallas?
Yeehaw! Actually, a town called Cheney, about 50 miles south of there, population 361. By all accounts, very rustic and charming, but as of late, ground zero, the locus for a series of mysterious nocturnal exsanguinations.
Exsanguinations? Of whom?
How does that grab you?
It's a
dead cow. Exactly. Or more specifically, a dead 900-pound Holstein. Its body completely drained of blood, as was this one, this one, this one, this one, and so on. 6, all in all, approximately 1 a week over the past 6 weeks.
Is there any sign of...
2 small puncture wounds on the neck?
That's not what I was going to ask.
Too bad. We got him. Check it out.
The way he's sort of going through this slideshow, and he's just like... He's kind of like... do you know those like used car salesman adverts? And they're like... And this... It's kind of like that energy. It's unbelievable. But yeah, again, this is Scully's interpretation of how Mulder is with this sort of story, I guess.
And I love the fact that he doesn't let her get a word in edgeways.
Yeah.
Every time she tries to talk, Mulder just bombards her out the way and carries on with his story. And so in Scully's mind, this is what it's like. This is what it's like being with Mulder.
Yeah.
The fact that she can't throw water on any of his theories because she doesn't have a chance to. Mulder's 100 miles an hour, and she feels like doesn't make a difference what she does. She can't talk any sense to him because she doesn't get a word in edgeways, which of course we know she does. But this is the way it feels to her all the time, and I just think it's a really clever way of giving you an insight into that character.
Yeah, exactly. Scully does suggest, or tries to suggest, that it's potentially a cult, or she even mentions a chupacabra, and Mulder sort of laughs her out at this, proper put down as well, you know what I mean? As we see later on as well, he does this quite a lot in her versions of the events, is he completely puts down her ideas and theories, and he just goes straight to, this is classic vampirism.
So self-assured, so arrogant.
Which... I mentioned it later on, but this definitely feels like a send-up of the tropes of the series as well, because we've said from the beginning how Mulder always seems to have that nugget of information that is bang on and like he's nailed the entire case, but he's just got it from nowhere, you know what I mean, or seemingly nowhere. And again with this, he already knows what it is, and he's already solved the mystery.
The funny thing I thought of when I was watching this episode was, I wonder if it's like a little bit of a viewer experiment as well as to who your favourite character is. Because I was watching Scully's version and I was laughing. I was like, Mulder is like that. Yeah, it's so true and blah, blah, blah. And just laughing along. And then Mulder's version of Scully comes along and I was like, she is nothing like that. She is a princess and a sweetheart. Like, do not talk about Scully like that. And I just realised, I think I like Scully a lot more than I like Mulder. I was just like, she's not that grumpy, she's not that moody. But then I was fully bought into Scully's version of Mulder.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Like, but I feel like that there's a kind of like I don't know, playfulness to his energy. You know what I mean? Whereas his version of Scully is really mean.
It's really mean. Like she's and I mean we're jumping way ahead, and I apologise for that, but. Gillian Anderson, again, phenomenal performance, because she's so unlikable in the second half of this story.
There's a lot of stuff in this as well, the way they play certain things, but I'll get to that specific moment. But anyway, so they sort of establish this, and they realise that they've got to go to Cheney, Texas. So they arrive at this funeral parlour, the Peaceful Slumbers funeral parlour. I don't think that means anything, but... and this is where we first meet the Sheriff Lucius Hartwell. And
what a heartthrob.
Well, yeah, he walks in, he's the classic like Texan cowboy. Like he's got his cowboy hat on. I think he's wearing like cowboy boots and everything, isn't he? He's like like that Lone Star like sheriff. He walks in and Scully is obviously in awe of this guy. He's sort of like attracted to him, which Mulder is very annoyed with. And tries to show her up as well in front of her.
But again, annoyed with according to Scully.
Yeah.
Like, this is Scully's imagining that you can, if you read into it, it's like she's almost imagining that he's jealous without him having to say anything. Do you know what I mean? So this is her putting her emotions onto him.
Yeah. And again, I wonder if it's that, like, she always thinks that maybe Mulder does show her up sometimes, because he straight away puts her down, and you know what I mean? And then continues to do so when they go in to examine this body as well. Scully and
one of my most underrated lines, and I don't know where it comes, so I'm just going to plop it here. Is the
Come on, Scully, get those little legs moving. Come on.
It's like, oh, come on, Mulder. There's no need.
Oh god, there's a lot in this episode. To be fair, though, I feel like this is going to be mainly clips. This episode. So they go and examine this body, and Scully and the sheriff are seemingly flirting in front of Mulder, which again he's not happy about. To which he sort of mocks Scully again and tells her, tell her your theory, as though to say, tell her your stupid idea, you know what I mean? And she theorizes that this is actually somebody mimicking a vampire. They're not actually a vampire. And the sheriff notes that she really knows her stuff, and he even calls her Dana.
But again, this is the first time where that sort of illusions broke, that you might not be getting the real story, because it cuts back to the office and Mulder rightly says he doesn't know your name, like he didn't call you Dana.
So exactly.
You start to get the semblance of, okay, this isn't a reliable narrator, this is a version, and we all know that memory is a very it can be toyed with very easily. When you're looking and basing things on people's memories, it's so fragile. You don't know if you're getting the real thing or your mind just puts together and fills in the blanks.
Yeah, I was going to say they haven't they said that like 60%. This is probably some bullshit like statistic that I've got somewhere, but like
you remembering it.
I'm remembering it correctly. 60% it works all the time. apparently, like, something like 60% of your memories are like, not as true as you remember, basically. They're sort of augmented in some way.
Yeah, the funny thing is, because I did law, and there was a big section of this when I was studying law, and the funny thing is, the reason why it's never really... witness accounts have to be sort of double verified and triple verified, because a lot of the time you're not actually remembering the event, you're remembering the memory of an event or the memory of a memory.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, like, you take key points of an event and your mind stitches those together with its own embellishments to make it make sense. And then the next time you retell it, you're retelling the version that you told, and then you add things to that, and much like this episode does a really good job of telling that. Yeah. And the funny thing is about memory, again, this episode does a great job of being an example of this. You're always the hero in your own memory. Yeah. No one remembers something and remembers them looking bad, or at least, I mean, I'm sure if you've killed somebody, you're going to look back and think, yeah, I was pretty a bad guy back then. But you know what I mean? But usually, you'll make yourself and you'll twist the facts to make yourself come off heroic. And both Mulder and Scully do that in this episode.
Definitely,
both, maybe not heroic, but Scully certainly... Take this last scene, for example. She twists it so that she's the smartest person in the room. And let's be honest, she probably is. But she's the smartest person in the room, and everyone, apart from Mulder, either adores her or just mocks her for no reason.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like that's her version of it, because she knows this is right, this is logical. And in her world, a sheriff going, oh, okay, might mean, oh, God, Dana's smart.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll leave it to the experts and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. And vice versa, when we get to Mulder's version of the story, he's like knowledgeable about all these different types of vampires and goes at length in discussing what they are. And Scully's sort of like, oh, here he goes again with his vampires. and
like everyone else around him is like confused and like intrigued. And like with the Mulder story, if they'd have like had more time, guaranteed you could put a bar scene in there where he's just sort of relaxing after a day's work and he's telling a joke and the entire bar laughs. And that would fit perfectly in Mulder's little world where he's the, you know what I mean? Where he's the funniest and wittiest guy in the world. I can fully imagine Mulder believing that's the case.
Exactly, yeah. So, it's done effortlessly in this, but yeah, we'll carry on because we've diverted quite a lot. But
all over the shop, It's hard not to in this episode. It's literally the first half and second half are the same story.
Yeah. Back in the when they're examining the body, Mulder notices that the shoelaces are untied, and he doesn't really know why that's relevant. But he says he wants to go to the cemetery straight away. So again, Scully's sort of painting him as erratic and just has these ideas. And he also basically commands Scully to do a full autopsy. When she asks what she's looking for, he just goes, I don't know. To which then we see Scully doing this autopsy begrudgingly. Again, we've always seen her as like in her zone, but in this, she looks visibly bored and just going through the motions.
Being left to sort of do the heavy lifting of the team.
Yeah.
That's the way she feels.
Exactly, yeah. So she's doing all this sort of dog's body work. And the most interesting thing about this autopsy is the person's stomach contents, which is a pizza, which she notes even after sifting through intestine, she's like, that sounds quite tasty. Which I thought was funny because this poor guy, he's been bled to death. And obviously this is not how probably the scene actually went. But she's just lumping his body parts going, his heart. He's poor guy, he's died. But yeah, just funny. We then see that she's done this autopsy and she says that she's checked into the Davy Crockett Motor Court, which Mulder immediately corrects and says, no, it was the Sam Houston Motor Lodge. So again, just these like sort of little memories where it's just misremembered.
Yeah, I like the, I don't know whether it's like fourth wall breaking as such, but the actual title credits of the house. gets deleted and then gets changed to the correction.
Yeah, it's really good. We see Scully. She put some change in this. They call it magic fingers. I've never heard this. It's just like this vibrating bed. I guess.
This can't be comfortable.
I thought that, yeah. It looks so violent. I was like, what's going on there? But yeah, she pops some change in there and lies down to sort of relax. To which Mulder then bursts in, covered in mud, which we'll find out a bit more about later. No explanation. As Scully asks why he's covered in mud, and he ignores the question. And also she mentions that thing that she was looking for in the autopsy was chloral hydrate, which is a knockout sort of anesthesia, I suppose, or something like that. And Scully's now thinking that this vampire is knocking out the victims before it takes their blood, to which Mulder's kind of disheartened about that. He's like, why? What vampire would do that? And Mulder also explains, as he's climbing onto the bed, that there's another body, and she's going to have to do another autopsy tonight, immediately, much to her chagrin. And I love how she acts this part as well, where she's kind of like, ah, like that kind of like teenager who's told you got to tidy your room, you know what I mean? And Mulder as well, it lies on the bed in his muddy jacket, just laughing to himself. Well, yeah.
He's got a free pizza out. Well, he's not free, actually. He has got to pay for it.
He has got to pay for it.
Have to wait for it this time, so.
That's true, yeah. And as she leaves, she passes this pizza guy who she'd ordered the pizza. And as he turns around, we see that it's Ronnie, who is the kid from the beginning of the episode. So this is where we start piecing together this story, I guess. We see Scully performing another autopsy. I love how quick and montage-like this one is. It's again...
Well, it gives you an insight into Scully's thinking of the process and the idea that it's monotonous and she has to do the boring tasks, and Mulder goes off and gets himself into trouble, and Scully's just expected to stay back and do all this boring work. And she doesn't... And we know from watching episodes that she doesn't think like this, but that's her memory of it at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. And as she's doing this, she finds that there's chloral hydrate in the system of this victim as well. So again, this person's been knocked out. Her phone rings and she hears heavy breathing in the other end. And again, it sounds a bit suspect initially until we find out what that is later on.
Yeah.
And she hangs up, just thinks nothing of it. And we see she continues doing this autopsy and finds that there's also pizza in the victim's stomach as well. And this is where she has this realization that the victim is being drugged by the pizza guy that she'd left with Mulder just. The best bit about this is Gillian Anderson's melodramatic overacting at her realize she's like again it's this kind of like
she's the hero of the story.
It's very pulpy, you know what I mean, these kind of it's I just thought that was brilliant as well, because she could play it subtle but she proper hammed it up, you know what I mean, to get that. I just thought it was fun. We cut back to Scully arriving at the hotel room. She kicks the door down and sees Mulder's feet on the other side of the bed, and this is where she sees Ronnie, the pizza boy, jump up, and he hisses, his eyes are glowing green, and he's got fangs. This is when he jumps over the bed, knocks her over, and as he runs out, she fires at him with her gun. She runs over to Mulder. She runs over to Mulder.
One of my favourite parts of the episode.
And wakes him up, and he begins to sing this theme to Shaft.
Oh, luckily I'd gotten there in time. I mean, though you were drugged, you were more or less unharmed. Mulder, are you okay?
Who's the black private dick who's a sex machine with all the chicks? Shaft! Can't dig it. They say this cat Shaft is a bad mother. Shut your mouth. Talking about Shaft.
I did not.
Doing all the voices.
Yeah.
Playing all the roles.
And again, we get this denial from, it cuts back to the X-Files office, and Mulder's like, no way, I didn't do that. But again, at this point, we don't know. Like, he's out of it. He's been drugged, so maybe he did. Maybe he didn't.
I'm calling it that I think this is out of everything in this episode, this is the most true. I strongly believe this happened.
And this was your laugh out loud moment. You said earlier. This
and something else later on in the episode, but I don't think I've laughed as hard at X-Files as I have at this, and I don't know why. It wasn't even the fact that he was doing it. It was when he changed voice and went, "Shut." It really made me belly laugh. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. As I mentioned, this entire episode has got so many like belly laugh gags. It's brilliant. We're back. They go back as Scully finishes, saying that she followed the pizza guy to this clearing, but Mulder had got there first, and as she states, he overreacted. Mulder isn't convinced about how true this story is, but Scully does say that we stopped a killer, though it's not a vampire, basically.
Yeah.
And Mulder says that she's scared to tell the truth, and this is where we now hear Mulder's version of the events,
which is very different.
Yeah, very very similar, but also very different. So we again start in the X-Files office, and we get the same scene, essentially, of him doing a slideshow. But in this scene, Scully is absolutely miserable about going to Texas and the entire situation in general, as Mulder is his calm old self. Mulder, he's just going through the slides of just like, this is what's happened here.
He paints himself as like this really timid, like just desperate for her to like agree with him, and like he just there's like moments where he's like, well, I understand what you're saying, Scully, and I completely agree with that, but maybe if we opened up our minds just for a second and looked at all the possibilities, and I'm just like, for God's sake, this is not Mulder. His version of himself is ridiculous, let alone Scully.
He's so like, maybe if just in case we'll do this.
How timid he is, and like every time Scully like is mean to him, he like cowers and goes, well, yes, you're right, Scully.
Mulder again suggests vampires, which Scully dismisses very quickly because she says, duh, they don't exist. Like that kind of like, again, it's very teenage, like the way they sort of act with each other is in this kind of scene is like,
a lot of eye rolling.
Yeah. We then go to the funeral home, and this time we get this sort of added bit of the mortician dropping an absolute clanger of a joke. Just no reason. Then we see the sheriff enter, and but we don't see him enter. Well, we see him walk in, and Scully sort of out loud says, "Hoo boy." It's like, again, this kind of like exaggeration of like, it's that kind of if you'd sort of imagine like a guy sort of staring at a girl or somebody walked in, and if you over exaggerated, they'd have their tongue out or something. This is like that kind of equivalent, I'd guess. You know what I mean? Which is interesting that it's Scully doing this. You know what I mean? You could easily paint it as, I guess, obviously, if the sheriff was a woman or something like that, it would be roles reversed. But yeah, Then the sheriff walks in. He's exactly the same, except he has big buck teeth, to which this part, as soon as he opened his mouth...
Apparently your mind was somewhere else.
Oh, boy.
Y'all must be the government people. I'm Lucius Hartwell.
He had big buck teeth?
He had a slide over by.
No, he didn't. And that's significant? How?
I'm just trying to be thorough.
I had to pause it because I was just laughing so much at this part.
When we go back to Mulder as well, and he's sort of like smiling, and he knows what he's doing as well. But like I would argue that it wasn't exactly the same, because with the sheriff, it was like the first sheriff we saw, it was like tightly fitted clothing, and he looked muscular, and like his hat was all cool. And this sheriff, his hat was like just stuck onto the back of his head.
Yeah.
All of his clothes didn't really fit him properly. Even his posture.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't like this hero walking in. He was like this like meek little boy.
Yeah.
It was very funny, very clever.
It was like that stereotypical hick, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that kind of like way of speaking. And Mulder makes him sound like an absolute idiot in the scenes that he's with. We cut back again to the X-Files office, and Mulder and Scully are arguing about if the sheriff did actually have buck teeth. And Scully asks, why is this significant? And Mulder just says that he's trying to be thorough. So again, I think he's just trying to wind her up at this point. Yeah. So we get this scene where they go to the graveyard, or the cemetery.
Yeah.
And he's looking
That's
around.
Where Mulder went when Scully was at the doing the autopsy.
Yeah. And they sort of go through just more vampire lore, I suppose, like saying that he's looking for different stuff. And again, it's Mulder flexing his supernatural knowledge, and this idiot basically going, "Oh, you don't say," kind of like that.
Yeah. And it's Mulder in Mulder's world, where he's the smartest guy in the room,
exactly.
and everyone's just sort of trailing behind him. But it also does put an important point forward as well, and they keep hammering this point home, which is vampires is a story that's told from generation to generation. It's found all over the world. Every sort of community has their own vampire story, and they all differ massively. And I think that's quite important when it comes to the end, when the idea of these are vampires, even if they're not the I want to suck your blood type vampires that we're all used to because of Bram Stoker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's quite funny as well that the villain at the end is basically having a vampire identity crisis. But anyway, so they're staking out this cemetery and staking out. And basically they get a call that there's a situation at an RV park, and so they go to this situation, and we find that basically this RV is it's going in circles, like
reversing in circles.
Yeah, exactly, and so they have to try and figure out how to stop this, and they said that they figured out a way to do it. Mulder is very quick to try and like brush what happened under the carpet, and Scully's like, no, explain what you did.
What do you think? We ought to shoot the tires out?
Anyway, skipping ahead.
Why skip ahead? What happened then? Mulder, you shot out the tires, and what then?
Okay, here's something you may not know. Shooting out the tires on a runaway RV is a lot harder than it looks. I then tried a different approach.
This scene in itself, I mean, I know you're desperate to get to the next scene, which is hilarious. Yeah. But this scene in itself's really funny.
Yeah, it is.
Which he basically, back in present day, Mulder says, I don't know whether you've ever tried to shoot out the tyres of a moving RV, but it's not as easy as it sounds. And the clip they cut to is both him and the sheriff just pulling out their gun and emptying their entire cartridge at this RV. Yeah.
Just
like from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, to no avail, as it just keeps spinning around them. And yeah, they say they had to use a different tactic. And then, this cut, again, another scene that absolutely killed me, because it cuts to Mulder just on the back of the RV, just clinging on, screaming.
As everyone watches, he just clinging on.
Yeah, I can't imagine, imagine if you were like this kind of small town and then say, the FBI's here, the FBI, and then you just see... and we see fling him off, and this is how he's covered in mud. He's flung across like the forecourt, and but eventually it does stop, And as they open it, a dead body falls out. And again, died the same way. It's been drained of blood. Same thing. And Mulder goes back to the hotel room, as we saw earlier. And we get sort of their version of... we get Mulder's version of events now, where I think Mulder, he doesn't jump on the bed. He goes...
He's very respectful. Yeah. He's very polite.
Yeah.
Scully's not interested in the slightest. She's being so mean to him.
Yeah.
And like, again, just this timid Mulder where he's like, I would never do this.
Yeah. I'll go for a shower. I'll get cleaned and all this stuff. But Scully does go, as we saw earlier, and the pizza boy comes in. He pays for the pizza, starts eating it, and realizes too late that he's been drugged. And we see him try to call Scully, and this is what had happened. He tried to call, but obviously couldn't speak because he'd got drugged. And we hear before Scully hangs up, she calls him a creep, apparently, as well, which I thought was a nice sort of turn. And this is where we see Ronnie enter, and he starts to come towards Scully, to Mulder, sorry. And they'd sort of left this hint earlier on that they kept talking about the victim's shoelaces being untied, and Mulder mentions that vampires are obsessive compulsive, so they have to do certain stuff. There's that funny scene where he likens it to Rain Man to the sheriff.
I forgot about that.
And the
sheriff's bragging about how he would definitely take Rain Man to the casino. Yeah. And Mulder's response is like, yeah, that would be a crime, though.
Yeah. He's like a paragon of virtue. He's like, that would be illegal. It's like, come on, Mulder. We know you definitely would. But yeah, he's kind of... So yeah, we've sort of had this... information given to us. So he picks up the sunflower seeds that he's been eating and throws them at Ronnie. To which Ronnie goes, "Why'd you have to do that?" And starts like picking them all up off the floor. This is where we see Scully enter, and in Mulder's version of events, she actually shoots Ronnie in the chest, but whether it's him being drugged or him being a vampire, the bullets have got no effect on Ronnie. And Ronnie in this scene just leaps over the bed. It's not like a jump; he just flies through the air, basically.
Which Mulder describes as like a flying squirrel. And then he confirms that he's not going to tell Skinner that, but that's what it was like. And
we get the sort of wrap up there as well. So Mulder recovers, chases, and then we end up with the ending scene. And so they've sort of gone through their stories now, and they sort of have to try and find some middle ground. But back in Texas, we see in the morgue that the mortician is dealing with Ronnie's body. There's a funny scene as well with that, where he's like cause of death and looks at the steak and just goes, "Gee, I wonder what it could be." He takes it out and starts just dealing with the steak. And in the background, we see Ronnie wake up and he sort of attacks the mortician, but he realizes he doesn't have fangs, so he just sort of attacks him, and as we find out later, he basically just gnaws at him.
Yeah, he nibbled his neck.
So we see back in DC, we see Mulder and Scully sort of bickering on the sofa, waiting before they give this report to Skinner, and Scully just keeps saying to him, just mention that you were drugged, just keep mentioning that you were drugged. And Skinner opens the door. I think it's this part, isn't it, where they both stand up and say, "Oh, he was drugged." He says, "I was drugged." But Skinner's actually just informing them that Ronnie, or the body of Ronnie, has disappeared, and that the mortician was attacked. And he states he's not dead. He was just bitten on the neck, and he just kind of goes. He was kind of gnawed on again, just to get the sort of like silliness of the situation, I suppose. And basically tells them, "You gotta go back to Texas and wrap this up." So they do. They go back and they sort of meet the sheriff again. It's nighttime now, and Mulder thinks that he'll leave Scully with the sheriff to do the stakeout at the cemetery while he goes to the RV court where Ronnie is.
Let it be known that the sheriff does not have buck teeth, and this isn't anyone's perspective. So Mulder is a liar.
Yeah,
we know that for a fact now.
I think it's that kind of like male. He's trying to make himself superior by making this guy look physically repulsive, I guess.
I genuinely think he's just toying with Scully because he knows Scully fancied her.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be that.
Tim, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, he says do the stakeout with her, and I do like as he walks away. He says, "Don't say I never do anything for you." We see they start having a chat in the front, and we also see Mulder go to the motel, and we find in Ronnie's room there's a coffin with Ronnie asleep inside. Again, Ronnie definitely feels to me like, do you know when a kid gets really into Marilyn Manson and they're just like, I want to be dark? This is like the vampire version of that. He's like, I'm going to hang out in a coffin. It's like, okay, then Ronnie.
in the army.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mulder managed to restrain him by sort of jumping on top of the coffin and using his handcuffs to lock him in. But as he looks outside, he sees that all the villagers are sort of surrounding the RV, and they've all got glowing green eyes. They all, as he goes outside to confront them, they surround him and basically drag him down to the floor. Meanwhile, we see Scully and the sheriff are having a chat, and the sheriff is basically saying he's sorry about Ronnie. We initially think it's just because he's a bit of a doofus, but he's actually trying to apologise for him being a bad vampire. And he says that, most of us have normal lives now. We restrain our urges. And Scully, again, she's not picking up on this because he's not being so explicit. But she says, I always thought that vampires were meant to be charming. And again, this is sort of now we kind of see where this is leading.
Yeah.
And as she turns around, we see that the sheriff's got glowing green eyes as well. So they both get attacked. The next day, they wake up and they both fell unconscious after being attacked. They meet up in the RV, but none of them have got bite marks. They seem fine, but all of the villagers have now disappeared and all of their RVs have gone. So I guess they're kind of like a travelling community of vampires, I suppose.
Basically, yeah. And the interesting thing here is, because they end up going back to the office after this, because obviously they've all gone. They make sure they're okay, but they've all disappeared. And when they go back to the office, they're sort of giving their explanation as to how these guys managed to escape. And the interesting thing here is you're not entirely sure whether, obviously they were both separated at the end there, you're not entirely sure whether they've given the real account of what's happened.
Yeah.
Because Mulder certainly goes down very heroically.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I was just looking at it going, I don't think it was that heroic.
Yeah.
I think something happened. And then even Scully, like I thought to myself, when I got onto that train of thought, and I was like, Scully just wakes up and she's sort of been left out in the cold and stuff like that. And she says that she was drugged. And the way she says it, and I was just like, oh, I don't know whether like, did that happen? Whether was she like trying to get romantically involved with the sheriff or something?
Yeah.
You just don't know. And there's like these two different storylines where you just like, you don't know whether you've seen the real thing or not. After the first half of the episode.
That's the thing. You can only go off their version of events. And as we've seen throughout this entire episode, their version of events aren't exactly accurate 100% of the time. But yeah, we see they're recounting it all to Skinner, and they say that's exactly what happened. But as it goes to credits, Mulder just goes, well, maybe not the buck teeth. Then we're left with that. So that's it in a nutshell, I suppose. I kind of tried to blast through that because there's a lot going on in the episode. For quite a simple plot, there's a lot going on to unpack. But what did you think overall?
I loved this episode. I thought this was great. Like you said, it is difficult to sort of recap because you're essentially recapping the same 20-minute story twice.
Yeah.
From two different perspectives. But I just thought they do this so well. And again, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the insight you get into the different characters' minds, I love how sort of just the little annoyances that each of them have with each other, and they've just turned to 11. It's just cranked up, and it just shows in these sort of exaggerated tales of each other.
Yeah.
A special mention to Gillian Anderson, David Duchovny, also Luke Wilson as well, who plays the sheriff. All three of these characters do such a great job of, not only do they play the characters well, but they play the characters in Mulder's mind well, and they play the characters in Scully's mind well. And I've got to say, especially Gillian Anderson, because she is utterly unlikable in that second half. And that just it's so far and away from what Scully's actually like. And yeah, I think my main takeaway from this episode, as many laughs as I had, as much as I enjoyed it, my main takeaway is I am more than certain that Scully's my favourite character now. I absolutely love Scully.
Well, there you go. Much the same. I can't imagine anyone not liking this episode. It's X-Files at its most silly, I'd say, but also because of that, it sort of embraces the silliness of the concept, I guess. There's so many laugh-out-loud moments during this. It reminded me a lot of when we first watched, is it Humbug? Where there's just these moments again. It felt like, because obviously this is Vince Gilligan's version of a comedy episode, I guess. And we've had a few of them leading up until this, but this is like the most out-and-out comedy episode.
I don't recall seeing Vince Gilligan write a comedy episode. I can't remember one if there has been.
No, I think he's done a few, but yeah, I don't know if they've not been comedy, but they've had I think some have had funny moments in and stuff like that. But yeah, never been a full out-and-out comedy. But yeah, I thought the writing was really well done. Again, just telling these two simple stories from two completely different perspectives and capturing the sort of character of each, but sort of through a sort of warped lens, you know what I mean? Again, as you mentioned, the acting from all three, and I think Luke Wilson definitely, holds a sort of, I was talking last week about one-off characters being sort of special characters now, and I think that Luke Wilson has definitely punched his way to the top of that pile, because he's just absolutely brilliant in this, in all three versions of himself. And yeah, it's just a really, really good episode. I don't know what else to say other than I loved it.
Luke's production notes.
Aware that an episode's script was due after the Christmas break of 1997, Gilligan had been working on a script that would have taken the form of an Unsolved Mysteries episode, with unknown actors playing Mulder and Scully and Robert Stack appearing in the role of the narrator. Under pressure to complete the script, however, Gilligan scrapped the idea because he just couldn't figure out how to do it. That sounds amazing. That sounds like it would be such a good episode.
Yeah, I think that... I kind of like the episode the way it turns out, though.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah, it is a really good idea.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if maybe they come back to that, I guess. I don't know. Who knows? With the help of executive producer Frank Spotnitz, Gilligan came up with a new idea inspired by an episode of The Dick Van Dyke Show called The Night the Roof Fell In, which the main characters, Robert and Laura Petrie, tell...
Oh, I've seen this. It's the argument, two sides of the argument.
I don't know. Basically, they tell different versions of a fight they had. Yeah. So it's
like a little comedy sketch.
Yeah. It's quite in the news at the moment, the Dick Van Dyke Show, because that's kind of like what One Division is taking a lot of its inspiration from, or at least the first episode anyway. Yeah, it's amazing how much you can get from these late 50s, early 60s sitcoms, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Gilligan said, I thought it was a cool way to tell a story. With two versions of the same story taking up much of the episode, Gilligan knew that he would have to keep the plot simple, and so he settled on a vampire story that everyone could easily follow. Both Mulder and Scully's unique versions of the episode were filmed back-to-back, utilising the exact same sets and camera angles.
It's very clever. It's very clever the way they do it.
Basically, they're setting up the same scenes, but then they have to portray them in completely different ways. The one after.
It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be difficult to just get out of that mindset. But yeah, interesting. The RV park that was featured in the episode stood on the site of an old sawmill that had burned down. In fact, this mill had been used in the show in the 4th season episode, Gethsemane.
Okay, interesting.
So they're like, well, could use it again now. Luke Wilson was cast to play Sheriff Hartwell. He'd previously starred in the comedy film Home Fries, which had been scripted by Vince Gilligan. So that sort of ties into it, I guess. I wonder if Vince Gilligan's sort of like, because he's tied with a lot of different actors, isn't he? Like Vince Gilligan, he's like got a lot of connections to like different actors. So I wonder if like that sort of happens in future episodes. Because I'd say like at the time, like is Luke Wilson? He must have been a quite big star at the time in 1998, isn't he?
You know what? I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I can find out for you though if you want to carry on, and I'll interject after the next one.
Cool. Local Vancouver comedian and actor Brent Butt played the coroner, and Patrick Renner played Ronnie Strickland. He said of the part, "Before we started, I asked if Ronnie was pretending to be a moron, or if he was and then the writers and producers told him, no, he really is just a moron." So,
he was in Scream 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I wouldn't say he was just a mega star. He was making his way. He'd been in a few things in the last year or so.
Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like, yeah, but yeah, he did a few films afterwards though and stuff like that, didn't he? And he came.
He's been absolutely tons since then.
The Out of Control RV was created by the show's special effects coordinator, David Gortha. A secondary steering wheel was rigged up so that a stunt driver could steer the car from the back of the vehicle, out of the camera's sight. Wilson and Renner were fitted with faux vampire teeth, which were sardonically labelled Funny Fangs, courtesy of special effects makeup coordinator Toby Lindala. Wilson later recounted that they fit comfortably in the actor's mouth, musing, "The retainers I had to wear as a kid never fit as well."
Did they have fangs? I thought they didn't have fangs, or were they like just different types of teeth?
Definitely Renner did, didn't he? The kid.
Oh yeah, the kid. Is that the kid?
Apparently Luke Wilson did as well. Yeah, he mentioned. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'll get back to it. The notes like aren't split up into proper bullet points. I think I rushed this one. In order to create the glowing green eyes of the vampires, fluorescent material was glued to the actors' eyelids. However, because they were unable to see, this gave the vampires a somewhat vacant stare. I thought it was
like when they closed their eyes.
Yeah, well, I thought it says eyelids, but yeah, like, but how did they do that? I don't understand.
So basically, they've asked the actors to close their eyes, and they've put them onto their eyelids.
Oh, I see.
So
I see.
When it looks, like, you know that scene where he's in the car and Luke Wilson turns around, the sheriff turns around, the actual actor will have closed his eyes as he turned.
I see, yeah.
Our listeners can't see us on our Skype call as I try and enact this to you now.
Makes perfect sense when you can see it. Sorry, guys. The corpse with fang marks were created by makeup artist Laverne Basham. In order to create a suitable model for the bite marks, Gilligan bit the back of his hand to show Basham exactly what he wanted. I don't know how hard he bit it, but I hope it's not too hard.
It stinks.
Welcome to the Critic's Files.
What did you give this one?
Last week I gave it an 8. I can't really remember. I think I gave it an 8. I definitely enjoyed this one more. I'm going to say 8.5.
8.5?
No, I'm going to say 9.
9.
I'm going to say 8.75.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to go right down the middle, 8.75.
I initially gave it a 9, and then I mentioned off air that I was looking at my list of episodes again, and I was looking at Home, and I was like, I rewatched that scene, the scene in Home. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. The scene in Home so many times after I'd watched the initial episode, and I did the same with this episode for so many different clips. So I was like, I can't rate it any less than Home. I really can't. So it's a 10. It's a 10 out of 10. This one.
10 out of 10. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know whether it's above Home or just on the, like, you know, in like rankings, I guess. But it's up there. It's very much up there.
Wow, interesting. So we can expect to see changes in your top 5 episodes at the end of the season.
It's been obliterated by the last 2 series. Let's be frank. I don't know if there's an episode from like series 1 or 2 in there at the moment. So, or maybe even 3. So I don't know.
Stuff. Well, I'm looking forward to going through those lists.
Just quickly as well, with 4,915 votes, it got a 9.4 on IMDb. So definitely up there.
A 9.4, did you say?
Yeah.
Fair play.
But that's it from me this week. Do we have any tweets?
Stop segment.
Welcome to Dan's Twitter Corner.
Stop segment.
Yes, we do. We got quite a few. I'll just pick out some at random. We had a couple of tweets with regard to last episode. So we had a tweet from Amanda. I apologise for butchering your last name. Zoglio, I want to say.
Okay.
At Lost8675. They put, I just listened to the Stephen King episode you guys recorded. When you said that the doll was just a dick, had me laughing so hard. I believe that was you, Luke. Thank you for that. Made my day. Best thing I heard all day. Thanks for the time you put into this. It makes my day brighter. Luke, any thoughts? Are you going to start calling more people dicks?
I mean, no. I mean, when they've got motives and stuff like that, you can kind of analyse it a bit more. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't have to justify calling the doll a dick. It's fine, Luke.
It is a dick, yeah. There's no other motive. It's like I always think of like villains, like good villains, and I always think of like Marvel villains, and I'm like, I can kind of see where they're coming from. They're not doing the right way, but I can keep seeing where they're coming from. This doll, I'm like, what an arsehole. Like, I can't think of anything that's needed for this. I don't know. There we go. I want more humanity in my killer dolls. I think, do you know what? I think I've just hit the nail on the head why I don't like killer doll stories. And that's why, because they're not human. Or they don't have a human.
It just doesn't feel right.
No.
Something's wrong.
It's just evil for evil's sake. And I'm just like, not for me. Not for me.
Well, thank you very much for listening. We also had, about the same episode, a tweet from Jen Shep. While not one of my favourites, Chinga has grown on me over the years. I like Scully getting a solo adventure and Mulder being mildly pathetic without her around, which is definitely like my favourite part of the show. Agree that the phone calls make the ep. Also, I fear both scary dolls and children, so this hits. Yeah, this definitely... It's not the episode for you if that's your fears.
There are, I can imagine, like, there definitely must be, if you're, like, scared of certain things. I don't know if there's ever a killer clown episode or something like that, but I know, like, clowns are quite a big fear for people as well. I can't imagine, like, many people enjoying stuff like that as well, you know what I mean? So, yeah, if you were, like, scared of dolls or, I don't know, killer dogs or something, Cujo.
Don't watch Cujo,
basically, yeah.
And then on Kill Switch, Kathy got in touch. I'm so glad you liked Kill Switch. I've also thought it's a really fun episode. I liked your point that you can't look too closely or take it too seriously. You just have to sit back and enjoy it, which I think... I mean, I was going to say you could say the same thing for this episode, but to be honest, it kind of rewards you for looking into this episode and sort of getting as much out of it as you can, doesn't it?
Yeah, and again, I do think that this kind of, like, wears its sort of silliness on its chest, you know what I mean? Like it knows exactly what it is. Like it's not hiding from the fact. So it's, and not to say that Kill Switch was at all, but there are parts of that where it's a bit like, if you sort of analyze it too much, it comes across a bit po-faced and you're like, oh, it's a bit too serious. Whereas this, it's just silly, you know what I mean? And it's just the right amount of silly, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last couple, a beautiful thing happened, Luke. A beautiful thing. The community was united. It was united because I mentioned a few episodes ago how the lighting on X-Files has been annoying me recently.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise this, but apparently this is a major issue. And I don't know whether you'll know because you don't go onto the Reddit boards or anything like that.
No.
Apparently, this has been concerning the fans for years. Like it's always been an issue. It doesn't really get better. It's just a very dark show, and a lot of people have the same complaints, which made me feel like I wasn't alone, which was nice. And we had a lot of people getting in touch just saying, it is bad. We just got to get used to it. And then I thought to myself, well, can this community get any closer? And then it did. It did. Kathy got in touch and she said, Dear Luke and Chex, I hereby formally apologise on behalf of myself, my parents, and indeed all Americans for tarnishing your beloved children's song by calling it the Hokey Pokey. Sincerely yours, etc. And I thought I'll accept that. That's fair enough. America took it, ruined it. They've apologised. Not a problem anymore. And then Green Elf got in touch, and it all went a bit downhill. The community has fractured, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, in times like this, we need unity more than ever, guys.
We do, but we didn't get that because we got a tweet saying the lighting, pardon me, the lighting never gets better. Also, it's Hokey Pokey in Australia. I'm sorry that you are wrong. And all we can say is we're sorry to all Australians because Green Elf Oz has ruined it for all of you. So we will no longer be releasing these podcasts to us.
So we're IP blocking the entire from Darwin.
That, Luke, you can do that.
From Darwin to Adelaide, this is gone.
So that's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. I really liked having Australians along for the ride. It's the other side of the world. It felt, but
this is
unfortunately, it's just.
It feels
we can't just settle and let these things go. You know what I mean?
No, this feels like the X-Files version of the Ashes. Are we going to burn the lyrics to Hokey Pokey and just like compete over them or something like that?
Whoever wins,
yeah. I said, do you know what?
Ashes.
Do you know what though? They've just got me because I just called it the Hokey Pokey. So they've got in there. They've seeded it.
Now we've got to try and figure out how to record the podcast without you being allowed to listen to it.
The editing job is going to be terrible.
Oh, no, a lot of good fun this week. As always, keep getting in touch. Just search Most Unwanted Podcast or Most Unwanted Pod, and you'll find us, or follow us on Twitter is probably the best way to keep in touch. We'll read them out as and when we can.
2 seconds. I'm just going to find what the episode title is of the next one because I forgot. Bad Blood.
Oh, I did. No, I don't remember.
Bad Blood X-Files. It's a good job that I've been on Wikipedia so often and it just comes up.
I did have a look.
Oh my God.
Patient X.
X, yeah. Jesus, have you seen the picture that goes with it? My word. It's horrifying. Oh dear. Don't look at that. All right. I'll come back to that. It'll be fine. So yeah, thanks for everyone for getting in touch. Next week, we are looking at episode 13 of season 5, titled Patient X. So, I mean, this very much sounds like back to the with the X, I guess. I don't know.
If there's ever an X in an episode title, I immediately think it's mythology. It's got to be mythology.
It's got to be, yeah. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe if we Redux and Redux Part 2. And both had X's in.
And then you had X. Wasn't there an episode called X?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We should have a look and just see. How many words can you get with X in? I've been playing Scrabble a lot recently and it's not easy. So
Xenon? Is that
Xenon.
X?
Yeah, Xenon's got an X, yeah. Xylophone?
Do you think there's an episode... If an episode comes up and it's called Xylophone... Are you immediately going to assume mythology?
Yeah. I'm going to think it's mythology, and they've also run out of words. So, but on that note, I feel like we should say our goodbyes, or our zudbyes. It's with an X, obviously.
Jesus Christ.
So,
let's just leave that there. No, I don't want to do a formal goodbye now. Let's just leave it at that.
It's a bit of a damp squid.
It's so cute. Leave an X.
Said squid as well, not squib. All kinds of wrong. Oh, Jesus.